All right, guys, in this new podcast video, I'm going to show you how I just converted pure hate into pure love. Now, this is a lesson in transmutation. If you don't know what transmutation is, it's basically a concept from alchemy where you transform one substance into another substance. I took chemistry in college, I took biology. And so the magic was, how do we convert this molecule to this molecule? This element to this element? Why do they, even morph? Why do they change? And anything that can dissolve is corruptible. So we leverage this fact and use it to our own benefit. Okay, so recently on Twitter, let me give you guys the backstory of how this all went down. So this person, Pokey June, says this might be the worst attempt at a beat I've ever heard. 1.7 million subscribers, by the way. So in other words, he's just slighting me for a beat. Okay, or they, I don't know who this is. So let's turn up the volume. So I was showing kids how to create what I heard from the underground. Okay. Now the video had 1.1 thousand views a day ago. Okay. And according to this video. So this person put this up and this tweet was getting traction. And I said, okay, I'm going to flip this hate into pure love. So basically what I did was on Twitter, I just started just really digging into the haters' mindset. And the whole strategy here is to use something called the dark triad, but for a positive outcome. Now, any marketing things that I teach you guys, any copywriting, any psychological things, they can be used for good or evil. What we're trying to do is convert the evil to good. So basically, if you define the word narcissism, for example, according to Gemini, it says a narcissist is generally defined by a long-term pattern of abnormal behavior categorized by an exaggerated sense of self-importance, an excessive need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. So basically, it says in a clinical sense, it involves preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance. In social terms, it often manifests as a belief that one is special and can only be understood by or should associate with other high status people or institutions. Now, there's another concept I learned from Ty Lopez called the dark triad. So this dark triad talks about the shadow side of humans and how we have a side that we show everybody else. And then we have what's called a shadow self. And most people, they try to hide their shadow self. They try to make sure nobody sees their dark side. Like we have thoughts in our head as men. We all do. You're watching your TV show. You're like, that's an idiot. But you don't say it out loud. You would never say it to that man's face. But in your head, you're going, that's an idiot. Okay. So what I allowed myself to do is allow the shadow self to express into the self that I present to everybody else. Because I said, why am I trying to act like I'm some PC or politically correct YouTuber? Long story short, the dark triad says narcissism is involved, and it basically is centered around grandiosity, pride, egotism, and a lack of empathy. The second element to dark triad is Machiavellianism by Niccolo Machiavelli. And basically, this is the manipulation and exploitation of others. So this is the one that I implemented to convert and transmute the negativity into positivity. I'm going to prove it to you guys. And it says, okay, it says a cynical disregard for morality, a focus on self-interest and personal gain. Okay. Then the last piece of the dark triad is psychopathy. And this one's basically about impulsivity, selfishness, and callousness, meaning that you lack empathy. Okay. In short. So I applied these techniques and I even told the haters, I said, I'm going to allow my inner narcissist to actually act on behalf of myself. So let me give you guys the rundown. So in my video, I basically went to the credits of, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry. But basically this person posted this video on Twitter. Okay. And then I responded and I said, you mad I exposed your secret sauce? I said, why are you so emotional about another man's creation? And I said, yeah, basically he made claims about the subs. And I said, yeah, we have 1 million subs over 14 years. And I questioned him. I said, you've been doing this how long? I said, where's your influence? And I said, I'll wait. And I wouldn't want to be like you in 1,000 lifetimes. And I called him, this is where I started the Machiavellianistic manipulation. Okay. And I said, so deal with it, loser. Okay. So that triggered this person to then go recruit more losers. I called them losers on purpose because this is a very specific way I went about this. Now, will this work for the super clean YouTubers? Probably not. But see, because I don't answer to a brand, I don't answer to business partners, I don't answer to anybody except the creator himself, I can speak directly from who I am, directly to other people. Okay, so the whole lesson in this is I showed the haters that, whoa, this guy does strike back. And I'm not saying that they were afraid of me. I'm just saying that my goal was to get them to recruit their loser friends. Okay, so here's the continuation of this. So I would take the comments from this post or people who were adding me, okay, because this person added me, okay, and I just replied to everybody who added me. All the haters, I replied. So I said, would you ever be my customer? If the answer is no, then why would I care about your opinion? That's basically what I said. And this person continues, and I said, and also here was one of the rules I gave myself is reply as much as you want. Even if they say something small, reply. You do this in a very short amount of time because you don't want to blow up your timeline and people get annoyed of you, which I'm sure some people got annoyed and thought I was crazy, whatever. I'm looking at outcomes, not people's personal opinions. Okay. So it says, because I want all the losers like you who have something to say with no credibility, influence, or results to understand I'm not the PC YouTuber you think I am. Then I said, okay, now I'll stop reading your loser thoughts. Because he was just saying random stuff to where it was just kind of like a waste of my time. And then I found a tweet from his, let me see what this even says, from March 30th, which showed me that this person just had hate in his heart from before. Because this wasn't even in context of the other thing. He was talking about me before. So I said, okay, you just have hate in your heart. So let me just reply to you. And I said, this is you. You're a real loser for real. And then I said, basically, I replied again, not really. I'm just using you as. So here's where I told the haters. I told them directly. And this is where you guys have to. Here's the fine line. Think of it this way. Okay, let's go full screen. So for those who are biblical students, you understand there's a story about Job in the Bible. Okay, now Job went through all types of chaos. But in the beginning of the story, for those who remember, the devil went into heaven and had a conversation with God directly, according to the story of Job. And God allowed the devil to test Job's love for God. So God allowed the devil to wreak havoc on Job. In other words, see, most people are like, how'd the devil get into heaven? Is God evil because that's not the point. The point is the devil answered to God. So I want you guys to pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay. God used a demon, his slave, because he is the master. He is above that thing. Okay. So it does not have a power above you. And this is how I had to take a position in this tweet storm. Okay. So here's where I let the haters know directly. Okay, I said, not really. I'm just using you as content. I told him I'm using Machiavellianistic manipulation. I said, I use my haters. That's 2 times I told him. I said, they are my slaves that work for free. And I degraded them because I want whoever is watching to understand there's 2 sides here. I polarized right at this point. I said, my haters are my slaves. They work for free. Because people who are watching from the outside say they're either for the losers or they're against the losers. There's no in between. You're either for this kind of thinking, which this guy is just very emotional. If you guys go read it, or you're against that and you say busy works beats added value. So I'm creating a divide. And like Jesus said, be the salt of the world. Why would you be lukewarm in the middle? You got to be polarizing because you want to get these losers away from you. Why would you want to vibrate on their low frequency ever? Okay. So this is where I let my shadow self express. And this is the part that people are scared to do on YouTube in general because they're afraid to lose something. They're afraid of some relationship. Let me tell you guys straight. Ever since I saw my son being born from my fiance, that was what pure surrender to God. Because you're like hoping everything goes right. It's just when you watch childbirth, it humbles you like nothing you've ever seen. It's like going to war in a way. If I had to guess what war is like going to war about. And so when you completely surrender to the creator in that point in time, watching your child be born, you're like, I have no control over this. I can't influence it. I can't even say positive words. You can't say, I love you enough. You can't say push through. There's nothing you can do in that moment of time. And you fully understand your lack of power as a human. And then you say, okay, God, I'm just hoping that this all goes right. So that's when you get humbled as a man. And ever since I had that point in time, I'm like, why am I answering to another man? When the man has to answer to somebody else. Why am I answering to a man that has to answer to somebody else? I'm not answering to a middleman. So I answer to God directly. Okay. And my point in saying all this is that that's why I'm allowing myself to express what's called the shadow side. Now that's a psychological thing that you guys have to get over because you're so worried about other people's opinions. When you worry about other people's opinions, you're creating a master for yourself. You instantly become a slave the moment you worry about somebody else's opinion. You are now their slave. So I made it very clear to these haters. I said, you are my slave. I am your master. I control you. I actually give you relevance. You wouldn't even have relevance if it weren't for my name and my identity. Okay. So I told him straight up. And that's the thing that a lot of people are just scared to do. So long story short, he's like, you mad? And I said, mad at what? And I really wasn't mad. I was just just using these people. Like I told them, I said, I'm using you for free promotion. Thank you. I kept telling them over and over and over again, and they kept telling their friends and telling more losers, and more losers compounded. And now we have a loser compound, and now we have a loser stadium, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where this original video has almost 400,000 views. My original video had 1,000 views. We 400x'd my reach in 2 days because I allowed the haters to think they were doing something. And this is the part that people can't comprehend. So basically I said, matter what, I said directly what I'm doing. I said, I'm using you. You're giving me free content that I will monetize, which I did. And I said, thank you, haters, my slaves who work for free. You have to belittle them because, again, you have to be metaphorically the God of the story in Job. If you are allowing something to have control over you, you are their slave. When you become the master, you control them. Okay, so I'm belittling them on purpose to let them know they have zero authority over me. Okay, and you have to make that extremely clear, and you have to believe it. Okay, so basically I just said I'm not mad, and I told this person straight out, I said, you're a pawn, learn chess, you have zero power or leverage or authority over me, which is complete facts. They have zero they can do to change any trajectory of my career. Okay, so long story short, after retweeting a bunch of stuff, basically, I'm just going back and forth, just doing the same thing over and over and over. All these hater comments over and over and over. I even said so many losers on Twitter tonight. And I kept, once you had one loser, he would attract 2 more. Once you had 2 losers, they would attract 4 more. Once you had 4 losers, they attract 8 more. And I told them straight who they are. I said, you're losers. You're watching from the sideline. You're a slave to me. Thank you for working for free. And the funniest tweet I put out, funny enough, in my opinion, was this one where I said, okay, hater slaves, you can clock out now. I'm going to bed. Any further retweets will be a bonus overtime pay of $0 and nothing cents. Thank you for helping me to attract people who actually have useful brains. Here's your paycheck. And the paycheck just says $0. I thought that was funny when I tweeted it. Okay, so I literally was on to something else. Now, some people say, isn't it a waste of time to reply to all these people who are low frequency? Just ignore them. No, I'm using them. This is probably actually the best use of time because I 400x'd my reach in 2 days. If I ignored them, that would not have blown up because people wouldn't have tried to add fuel to the fire. Okay. So, and I also keep in mind, I was doing this while I was using some AI to automate some work for me. So I was actually automating work as I was doing this. All right. So long story short, I think that's the end of the chain, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pause it. So basically I came back and I said, I told the person directly, I said, wow, okay, they got suspended. Okay, that's crazy. Basically, I said, started to flood the timeline with my manipulation tactics on the haters. It scored me 250,000 extra views in a day. Okay, I was talking to somebody else in that case. All right. So long story short, I think I calculated it in terms of what I would have to pay social media to get that same amount of reach. Let me find that tweet. It would have cost me $3,500 to get the reach of 500,000 people. Now, this also got over onto Instagram. So Producer Spotlight decided to post this. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so here's Producer Spotlight. I don't know if they just saw it was going viral or if they were trying to stir the pot. I don't know. There's a lot of people who create content and they throw shade and they try to tear other people down. I don't know their intentions. So basically, oh, he said, man, is it really that bad? So I don't know. You just don't know their intentions. I don't know. But like I said, even if they were a hater, I'm using them. Okay. So it says Busyworks Beats is currently being clowned on for his attempt at making an underground beat. Let me see if I can find the actual post. All right, so here's the actual post. I think I have a screenshot where there's like 400 something comments on this one post. Yeah, so here's the picture. So there's 400 plus comments on this post. Guys, this happened in 1 day. And in my head, I'm going, they say Busyworks Beats is so relevant, but there's 400 people commenting on a post. There's 400,000 people watching a video about Busyworks Beats. And this is the internal struggle that a lot of people deal with. They worry about other people's opinions, but they forget, what are the facts? This person generated 500,000 views of attention in a day just for you mentioning his name. Like, understand that. Just for you mentioning his name. He wasn't even in the room. He wasn't in the content. Technically, I wasn't in the content, to be fair. But in 2 days, 500,000 views in reach. Now, some people say, okay, well, it's 500,000 people that hate you. Okay, well, let's flip that onto its head and show you guys the actual factuals. So from this campaign, my whole point in showing you this campaign is not to say focus on negativity. It's actually to do something else. Now, before I get into my technique, I have to credit, I did a video recently about Glock 40 spaz on our YouTube, and the producers were Henry and Monkey Man. So the ironic part about this whole thing, people telling me I didn't know how to make underground beats. This is the definition of an underground artist, okay? Two producers who produced for the underground artist, then later came back and shared their flowers. So for example, here's Henry and here is Monkey Monk. So for example, this is the DM from Monkey Monks, and he says, "For sure, man." So wait, where's it at? My bad, I got the wrong part of the combo. Give me a second here. So it says, "No, for real, you the GOAT. I'm so geeked I woke up to this. I can't even explain the full circle moment this is for me." He says, "Thank you, bro." So basically, the ironic part about this whole smear campaign that somebody thought they were running on me, the definition of the underground producers, since people claim I don't know what I'm talking about, the definition of what they think is the underground just gave me probably the ultimate flowers, which is when people say full circle moment. That usually means I started with you and now I'm here talking to you. Like I had that moment with Teddy Riley, for example. I said, wow, it's a full circle moment. Funny enough, he's right here. And so that's the irony of this entire campaign, is that this person actually reached out after this entire thing and just basically confirmed that, you know, I assume I added value to him over time. All right, so now there's another DM from Henry as well. So this is a story Henry put up, and I'm so thankful they put this up because I reshared it to my story. And it says, "It's an honor, Busy Works Beats." All right, so he even captured the part where it says, "You getting fried on Twitter." But this is from Henry, okay? And we're actually going to be live on Monday to talk to those two about producing in the underground style. So let me show you guys the positive side that came out of all this negativity. So there's so many testimonials that the time ran out before I made this video. So you guys can go back to my Instagram and see all the testimonials. But basically, this person says, "My bro will always be legendary." I was just resharing the comments. So this one, see, it ran out of time. So I got to go back. Let me see if I can reach it from this tab instead. Give me a sec, guys. All right, so I saved these to my highlights if you guys want to check it out. So this is from Nile Waves, who makes YouTube videos. He says, "All I'm gonna say is Busy Works Beats forever a legend. He taught us a lot in our beginner days." Shout out to Nile. And this one's from Dino X, says, "I don't know how you could hate on bro, though he been the GOAT at YouTube FL tutorials." So basically, I was just sharing all the comments. So the funny thing was, on Twitter, I was letting people be negative. And then when Producer Spotlight tried to hop on Instagram and further the negativity, I don't know what their intent was. So this could have just been whatever. I don't know. I doubt they were in defense of, but long story short, when they tried to extend the drama, I'll say, the funniest part was that it converted into love. So this is not, if you guys go read the comments, there's tons of people leaving testimonials on this post on Producer Spotlight. And so I honored them by putting them on our testimonial reels here. So there's so many. I could read all these, but it would just be a lot to read. But look, guys, there's like 50 testimonials that I did not ask people for. In fact, if this is the purest of love, because this is the time where people were calling me out for being a bad producer and my style's weak or whatever. And the funniest part was these people could have been like, yeah, he is kind of whack, but they decided to actually show love. So it's almost like during the hard times, how do people treat you? And this just shows, like, there's so many. This just shows, this video is funny. But this just shows these are the realest testimonials I can get. And I have like at least 50 of these. So after 500,000 free views and however many haters, who cares? They're just my slaves. Like I tell them directly, "You are my slaves. You're working for free. Thank you. You're working for $0 and you're working really hard for no reason. Thank you. You're working when I'm asleep. Thank you." I tell them directly this. And, you know, the love pours out on the other side because people are like, the people who I have added value to and who know what I'm actually about, they go, you know, they actually share their pure love in this case, because the hate storm, it creates polarity. You have hate and then you create that complete opposite, which is love. So that is how I transmuted the haters into a love campaign. We have 50 plus testimonials that came out of this, y'all, and 500,000 free views. Okay. You guys don't think I got business out of, you know, them pushing my video for free? Yeah, we got business because of that. People who weren't even paying attention were paying attention now. So let me see if there's anything else I got to show you guys. I think that was it, because I want to move to a video where I react to my Studio Nerds podcast in the next video. But I just wanted to show you guys, like, you have to embrace not being liked. Okay, because here's the definition of being liked, is that you're like somebody else. And do I want to be like the people on Twitter who are just sowing negativity out of nowhere? I would never in 1,000 lifetimes want to be like them ever. I learned this from Xbox Live because, like I said in the my Twitters or my tweets, I came up during the time of Xbox Live where we had no party chat, meaning that you had to hear everything everybody had to say in the Xbox pregame lobby of Gears of War, Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, Halo. You had to hear all these racist people call you the N-word. You had to hear all these people tell you to shut up. You had to hear freestyle rap battlers. It was probably the best time ever in general. Like, that had to be the best pinnacle of human time. Just hearing people say whatever, just whenever. It was just a very interesting time. But my point is that makes you grow very thick skin. And I'm a gamer at heart. So like, I know how to trash talk. And one thing I learned is that when people are clowning me, for example, thinking that they're going to be cooler because they're clowning me, I just embraced the clowning. And I would actually exaggerate the clowning to where it actually became corny to clown me. And I just flipped the negativity just like that. So you have to learn how to, I don't know a word for it, but like sway. What's the word? You have to know how to go back and forth. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Ebb and flow. You have to learn how to go back and forth. It's not just about punching and marketing. Sometimes it's about dipping back and then going back to swing. Okay. So that is a real case of how I just converted haters into pure love. And I want to thank you guys. This is a deep understanding. You're probably gonna have to watch this like 100 times, to be honest, to truly understand what I'm saying. But ultimately, think of this. The story of Job. Okay. Think of it this way. God, the creator of all things, allowed the devil, the most hated of all kind, basically torture Job. Okay, he gave the devil permission to torture Job, but the point was so that Job would prove his actual love for God. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm God. I'm saying that God was the master. The devil did not have authority over God. He didn't tell God what to do. He listened to God and actually did what God just said to do. That's how you have to treat your haters. You are their God. I'm saying metaphorically speaking, you are their God. They don't exist without you. In fact, they're looking for confirmation from you to know that they exist. Because it's almost like, a low frequency, for example, they're trying to speed up. Okay, if you had to think of it this way. When you're a high frequency, you're going too fast. Okay, they're slow back here. You're going too fast. They can't catch up. So they're like, man, I'm never going to be like that. So what I did in this case is showed them there's a path from low frequency to high frequency in this video. But long story short, think of it like the story of Job. God is the master, the true authority, and he tells the devil what to do. So no matter how much hate, use your haters. They're actually the most effective marketing you can get on the planet. They're never going to buy from you. They're probably never going to have anything positive to say. And if they do, it reminds me of my feelings about Young Thug's music. I was like, who would ever listen to Young Thug? Like, it was just so garbly sounding to me. And then I heard the song Check. From Young Thug, and that converted me from hating the music to actually loving the music. And so you guys have to figure out that point in time to polarize your audience. And I'm not saying to be fake. This was truly how I felt. So that's deeper work you guys have to do in terms of allowing your shadow side to express. I think people are trying to suppress the shadow side all the time. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the point is, in the story of Job, God was always the creator, the master over the devil in that case. Even though he used the devil to go see if Job really loved him. Think of Job like the audience in this story, for example. Think of myself like the God figure of this story. Think of the devil as the haters. I'm not saying I'm God. I'm just saying you have to understand the characters. So God used the haters, the devil, to go mess with Job, the audience, to try to create more hater. And because the whole point of the devil being sent out was to get Job to curse God, basically. But Job never did. He's just like, I have my faith, even though everything's falling apart, I have my faith. And so after God saw that Job did not curse him, he actually blessed him 1,000 times over. And that's how we have to think. So again, God of the story, treat it like yourself, the master, nobody above you. Use your haters, the devil, to go act like they're doing something to your audience, which is Job in this case. Now, once your audience divides themselves from the wheat and the chaff, you say, okay, the audience who's the audience that loves you, they're going to show that love. And then that's how you know who your actual audience is. So use your haters to grow. Treat them like they are the yeast when you're making bread. Yeast needs sugar. Give them something to eat on, content piece, a talking point, a spectacle, and let them be the yeast to the bread. They're going to rise that bread very fast. Okay. And once the sugar's gone, they have nothing to eat. So they just roast your bread for free. Thank you guys for watching. It's Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. Peace out, guys.